something, it could be like a happy picture, it could be a sad picture, but if it doesn't have that like human quality or like that feeling behind it, I really don't connect with it.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm George, co-founder of Bluethumb, and I'm joined by my colleague Amy. Welcome to the Art in My Home podcast.
We uncover the surprising stories from the art collections of unexpected guests.
Today's guest is journalist, podcaster, and content creator Maggie Zhou. She's a self-described media slashie. She was the editor of Fashion Journal, has written for The Guardian, Refinery 29, ELLE, and Marie Claire. She's the host of the popular pop culture podcast Culture Club, and her fashion content has a huge following across the internet. Welcome, Maggie.
Welcome, Maggie.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for that very generous intro.
You're welcome. We'll start on the art side of things, but could you tell us about your home? When people come visit, what do you hope they kind of feel like when they first step into it?
Of course. I kind of alluded to this off mic with you, Amy, but it's a bit interesting at the moment. I'm actually living at two places. I'm actually living at two places, and I'm living with my parents and my younger sister in our family home, but I'm also half moved out with my partner, and that's more central and in an apartment there. So to answer your question, with my family home, we'd only been living there for a couple years, and I'll describe it as open, light-filled, and practical.
Yes.
There's not too much in there, to be honest, and at times it can give the impression terribly of like a display home because we like things tidy as well.
Sure.
On the flip side, I've been living with my partner in the new place for like 5-6 weeks. We just had a housewarming on the weekend.
Oh,
That's on TikTok,
congratulations.
actually.
Yeah.
The cafe housewarming.
Exactly. We turned the apartment into a pop-up cafe.
Oh, I love it.
Which was super fun.
Yeah.
But because it's so fresh still, you know, it's a bit bare boned.
Sure.
But the vibe we're going for is cozy, homey, and somewhere where you can spend a few hours on the couch with friends.
Yeah. That's a great vibe. I love that. Now, you sent through to us, and we've been having a look this morning at your really cute art collection. I know you weren't saying you're not too much of an art collector, but I think you've got a great start already. Could you tell us a bit about some of the artworks that you had? And maybe they're not hanging at the moment because you are between a couple of houses, but what are some of the artists in your collection that you have collected over the years?
Yeah, when I got asked to be on this podcast, to be honest, I was a bit imposter syndrome because I was like, wait, like I love art, but do I have much of it that is mine? And it turns out like, I kind of do. And I think sometimes the art world can seem really intimidating. So what constitutes as art collection? Like what is that actually? But if we go about it in the way of like, oh, it's art you own and you collect, I guess, yes, I'm part of this world. Some of my favourite pieces are pieces that my friends have made. I feel like, especially as I'm in my mid-20s, I don't have that much disposable cash to spend on art per se. So some of the pieces I've gotten have come about as presents. One of my friends, she is one of my favourite artists and designers. Her name is Rochelle O. And I've got a few beautiful paintings and prints from her. One of them, I'm pretty sure, I should know what it says, but I think it's like Boogie Wonderland or Boogie something, and there's a cute check moment, like gingham background. It's quite pink, and then there's like a girl like swirling, dancing, and there is unfortunately a rip in the corner because I blue tack things terribly. But that's a really special piece. I got it for my 19th birthday, I think. So I've had it for a while.
You started early.
I started early. Another piece that comes to mind is this gorgeous like swirly moment. Wow, it is really hard describing art, isn't it?
Is it on a podcast?
Yes, it is. It is my
Yes.
friend. She's a Melbourne creative and writer. Her name is Sienna Barton, and this is like an original piece. She's used like markers and like pencils and bit of a mixed medium moment. And bought that off her, and that hangs in the family home too. Oh, there are so many. There's actually just a lot of pieces I like to talk
the
about.
movement in that one though. Like, And the pink undertones, which are like, if you have a sneaky look at your collection, a lot of pink undertones.
Which I did not expect
No,
until I
but
went through.
when you get it all together and then you're like, gosh, I like pink.
I do.
Yeah, no judgment on that at all, because I feel like that's like the underlying of all my art as well. It's like something pink in it all, which is nice, makes it kind of cohesive in a way. Yeah.
And I saw a couple of nice kind of tablescapes or like there's a flat layer thing.
Yes.
Tell me about them.
Yeah, I think contemporary still lifes, if that is a term.
That's
probably
a great term.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is a category or like a type of art I am really drawn to. One of the pieces I have that's over my bed is this like table featuring like an oyster and a few kind of small platey bits, and that's painted by my friend Kitch Catterall. That's a print that I bought from her. Another one that's a recent addition to my house I love, and this is with an apartment with my boyfriend. It's this gorgeous like acrylic square kind of big canvas. It was the biggest canvas I've ever seen, like I've ever owned. So it was quite a special moment.
Yeah.
Bought it off Facebook Marketplace directly from the artist.
Yeah.
And it's two people at a very Melbourne looking like bar that, again, they've got the small plates, they've got oysters, there's a theme. And I loved it because I was like, oh, that could be me and my partner in a couple decades, because the lady has grey hair. So I was like, it's not me yet, but it could be me.
Yeah.
I've got a special story about that one,
please.
if you would like to hear it.
Yes, I love it.
So on Facebook, the woman, she uses the pseudonym, but on Facebook, that pseudonym is Beth Amy. And I bought that off her when I sent her like the payment. She had given me her real name, and I was so excited when I got the artwork. I posted it to my Instagram story using her real name, like tagged her account. She replied and she was like, I'm 99% sure I was listening to your podcast when I painted that.
Get out! The inspo.
Amazing.
It was wild to hear.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, that's a nice story around that, actually. And so when you were hunting on Facebook Marketplace for it, were you searching art on Facebook Marketplace, or were you looking like secondhand, like anything in particular?
A mix of everything.
Yeah. Like if it just pops up,
It just pops up, but a lot of the furniture we've sourced is from Facebook Marketplace,
Totally.
and a few art things were popping up. Have to be honest, this was before I found out about Bluethumb, and Bluethumb is honestly incredible, and I'm not just saying that. So that's been really helpful. I don't have to go through Marketplace.
You make us blush. No, we talked to an interior designer earlier in the year, and a lot of her sourcing is about Facebook Marketplace. Even though she's interior designer, she's like, that's where I like to source, because most of the furniture on there has more character than
Completely.
like new furniture. Now, when you're hunting art, is there anything that attracts you to it, or is it just kind of aesthetics or?
There's an ongoing debate in my house with my mum, because we've been trying to fill this blank wall for like 2 years. But we have different styles and things. And the one thing, for her thing is it's got to make her feel happy. For me, it's got to have soul in it.
Oh, I love that.
When I see art, that to me, it's obviously all subjective, but when I see art that feels soulless, it makes me curdle inside a bit. There's something that is so, I guess, repulsive in a way. And it could be something, it could be like a happy picture, it could be a sad picture, but if it doesn't have that like human quality or like that feeling behind it, I really just
Can't connect with it.
Just don't connect with it.
Yeah.
So that's probably like my number one criteria.
Is to connect with it.
Yeah.
It's not repulsive.
So your mum and your Venn diagram of this space on the walls. Happy mother, connect and soul with you, and I'm assuming the haven't crossed over yet.
Not really.
No.
We send each other links, like get both like super eager on each side, and the other person's like, oh, maybe not that one, and it's just gone like that for a while.
Interesting. And when you connect with it, is it about knowing like the artist's story, or is it literally just seeing something in it yourself?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
I do think gut instincts are really important when it comes to art, and I think we shouldn't discount just like that emotional initial reaction. But I think art can be so much more heightened when we learn more about the artist or the story behind it. So that definitely feeds in. But I would say like that first reaction says a lot, especially if it's something you're looking at every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's
that reaction. I with music, I often when I'm first repulsed by a song, I end up loving it. It's like, I hate this because it's unfamiliar, and then it builds. And maybe for art, sometimes that's the way for me.
I think having that repulsion is actually a good thing, because I think the type of art I hate is when it like conjures up no emotion. So it's not like that love or hate. It's just like apathy. Oh, like that's terrible.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You just want to feel something strong.
Yeah, exactly.
Love or hate and come around. Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you have any artists on your radar in the future that you'd like to collect?
I would say Libby Haynes
Yes.
is a very
Love
popular,
Libby.
incredible Australian artist.
Yeah.
Very much dabbles in like the foodscapes and like contemporary still lifes. I really love her art. And I definitely would love to own some First Nations art as well. That's definitely something I would really, love to own in my home as well.
We've got a big mid-year NAIDOC
amazing.
exhibition coming up, so we'll get you along. Yeah.
I'll keep my eyes
Keep
out.
an eye out, yeah.
Yeah, Libby Haynes, I actually thought one of those tablescapes was hers.
Yes.
Because I've seen her do sort of oysters, and I follow her on Instagram.
Yes, me too.
I'd like one.
Yeah, I know. I think it's interesting because, like, of course, the art world is not immune to trends, and you can definitely see the patterns. And especially at the moment, I feel like her art style has inspired a lot of artists as well, which is cool to see.
Yeah, I feel like she was definitely at the forefront of, I'd say, Australian contemporary still life, in like tablescapes in general. I think I kind of caught my eye on her just in lockdown. I feel like that's when she kind of picked up, and then gone from there. But I think she's definitely kind of set the trend, and people have developed from there, the kind of layout and everything that she does. Really great.
Yes.
There was one more you showed us with like text in it, I think, that I loved.
Yes,
Tom's
I'm
Corner
glad.
Shop.
I want to talk about this one.
Yes.
I'm glad.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
I'm
yes.
actually really glad to talk about this.
Yes.
So another piece I love, I actually commissioned for my boyfriend's birthday last year, which I've never really done before. So it came about because there's this comedian he really likes who is also an artist. His name's Tommy Dassolo. He's a Melbourne comedian, and for ages he was wanting to potentially get like a chip packet and like a Coca-Cola bottle like tattooed on him, my boyfriend. And I was like, so
Man
true.
of passions. I like.
If you'd like to do that, go for it. But before we do, like, why not commit to just like a wall poster? So without him knowing, I like contacted this artist, and we created this illustration kind of together. I kind of gave like that initial inspo being like, hey, it's like a chip packet and it's a Coca-Cola bottle. And it's very much in his cartoon-esque style. And in the end, we added some text that read Tom's Corner Shop. That was before we were living together as well. But it's a really special piece, and it makes me smile a lot.
Yeah.
That's
and
nice.
your partner's Tom?
Yes,
Yeah.
he is.
I
yes.
love that one.
Who's the artist?
Tommy Dassolo. So they're both names Tom, so it's a bit confusing. But
No, I love that. I saw it, I'm like, who is that? It's awesome. Yeah.
It's a nice concept. I really like. I like that one.
Yeah. We have an artist who does these amazing confectionery pictures that
Shannon Camden?
Yes. And I desperately want them, but I just know I'll eat junk food if they're on my wall.
Yeah, true. Like I'm seeing that every day. It's like amazing.
Okay. And so, Tom, your partner, is he going to go through with the tattoo now that he's got the wall?
He hasn't spoken about it since, so I think it's quelled that desire.
Maybe it's enough. He's like,
it's enough.
I live with it now. And you know, when you get a tattoo, you literally live with it.
So
But so he's
true.
living with the actual artwork instead.
Yeah.
Maybe that immersion therapy is going well.
That was cool.
Yeah.
And do you guys have sort of similar tastes in art?
Yeah, surprisingly, I would say yes and no. I feel like there's a big, again, with a Venn diagram, there's a big Venn diagram crossover. And I think sometimes when I like a piece, there are times where I'm like, oh, I know he'll love that too. For instance, this is, again, so random, but we were in a cafe in France last year, and there was this incredible kind of, it almost looked etched, but it was like some sort of drawing or something. And we both just gravitated to it so much so that I actually contacted the artist and was, again, tattoo themed here, was going to get a tattoo by them like the following day. I didn't end up doing it, but I was so drawn to their work that I gave them money and then I didn't get it back because I put it, you know, it wasn't meant to be, but I was so drawn to it and he loved it too. Yeah.
Amazing. And so this is a local French artist.
Yes. Yes.
And somehow you went from the cafe to finding them the next day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Go deep.
that's the
That's
end of the
great.
story for now.
Yeah, you
But
never
who
know.
knows?
Yeah.
Next trip to France.
Yes.
Cool. Jealous.
Yeah.
I know, a little brag, but it was my first time in Europe,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, no, that's awesome.
I'm also jealous that you and your partner can agree on something like
True. I do think he does kind of let me run wild with it because he trusts in my taste, even though they might differ.
Yeah. No, mine is I'll put something in the house you won't notice for 2 weeks. So maybe that's all right
funny.
as well. It hasn't offended him that he hasn't picked up on it. So that's my trick.
It's also your job. I feel like you've got
faith.
it.
Yeah. And I guess, you've been a fashion writer like that. You're immersed in something aesthetic. So surely you can pull I work in an aesthetic field.
That's
trust
true.
me.
Yeah,
that is true.
I have taste.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about that. For someone in their 20s, you have written for a whole bunch of these amazing publications: Guardian, Refinery 29, ELLE, MTV, Marie Claire, and recently the editor of Fashion Journal.
Yes, I was one of the editors there. I was heading up branded content and features there, and I had a lovely time. I actually interned there way back when, then did a bit of casual production work for them, and then in a full circle moment after being a contributor for so long, I worked there again for a year last year, and I'm such good friends with the team there, so it was so fun and very bittersweet also, kind of closing the door on that one as well. But yeah, it's been a really fun journey into journalism in the last 5 or so years. Before that, I was working at Refinery 29 for a couple of years doing writing and a bit of social media work there. And before that, just freelancing around a bit, where I am now again, actually. So back in that world.
You sort of made the jump back to freelancing, but content creating as well, really, and that sort of seems to be a lot of what you're doing. Was that scary, jumping from a job to I'm a content creator plus freelancer?
Oh yeah, completely. I made that jump at the start of December in 2023. And, December, people are slowing down. I knew that. But I spent, the next, 2 months, twiddling my thumbs and, not sleeping as much and feeling quite stressed out. Because you're what have I done? Yeah. But, of course, I did trust in myself. And I am someone who really thrives in a freelance world. I'm quite self-motivated. This sounds like a job interview. No. I'm pitching myself to you guys. But actually for the previous 2 years as well, I was working 4 days a week at my various places. So I kind of had a taste of that kind of work-life balance.
Sure.
So yeah, it was scary. It's still scary, but it's feeling less scary now.
My question is, how is it going from, and everyone who is an intern would know how this feels, how is it going from an intern at the place you interned to working there?
Oh my God.
Would be so satisfying.
So satisfying. Yeah. And then I was helping to manage the interns that we actually had.
God.
So it was really full circle.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of the team had a similar experience of interning and then working there. So
it's nice though that they actually hire from their intern program as well.
Exactly.
Oh, so full circle. I love it. So what were some of the kind of earliest work influences from you from when you started being looking into journalism? How did you get into it?
I spent so much of my teen years online.
Yeah.
So much. We're talking when I was 11 or 12, I was on Twitter in the height of One Direction fandom.
Oh,
so
of course.
it was like a full-time job, honestly. So I was on that for ages. And then I was on Tumblr for so many years. For people who might not have heard of that, that's like a micro-blogging site. Similar to Pinterest in a way, but very like subculture-y and like you're very much in your feels and it was a lot. From there, I actually had my own blog spot for a few years and that's where I kind of experimented with fashion and writing, kind of treating it as a personal diary and like photo shoot, which was really fun. And I would say definitely the internet has been such massive inspiration and I guess has pivoted me in this direction of digital media and journalism and writing. It's all kind of like combined all my interests in a way. I think it's sometimes hard to narrow down, but like I love writing, I love pop culture, I love internet analysis, I love fashion, and it's kind of nice that you can play around with all of that in this like digital realm.
As a very online person, do you ever like turn off your phone? Have you ever done a digital detox?
Not in like no, which kind of sucks, but I would have to answer no to that. And it sucks because I'm somebody who is trying to kind of reclaim like my own time and separate myself from my work, which means separating myself from my phone more. Because I think, you know, life isn't meant to be lived through a screen and you lose out on a lot when you spend a lot of time on social media. So even though I haven't done a full digital detox, I do spend like weekends offline sometimes, and I do, and I do make an effort to have offline time for sure. But that thought of like, let's say spending a full week off my phone, like scares me.
Yeah.
And that's telling.
Yeah, no.
It would also be hard though because it is your job.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really just switch off.
I know.
Like, can't just put an out of office, like, just let me go rogue.
True.
Yeah.
I know, but I do hide behind that a lot. Like, I'm like, when I'm scrolling on TikTok, is that my job always? Like at 10 p.m. at night?
Yeah, you need to keep up with the pop culture.
I know.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. So you have a successful podcast. It's been running for 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's called Culture Club.
Yes.
So it's a kind of internet everything culture, and I've listened to some episodes. There's like a bunch of fashion and the book club episode I want to ask about.
Yes.
Why'd you start it? And secondly, what's like been really surprising that you've learned over the 4 years of doing it?
So I started this podcast, as you said, 4 years ago with now one of my best friends, Jasmine Wallace. She's a fellow writer and editor. And at the time, we were actually just pitching similar stories to Fashion Journal. Okay. And our editor was like, oh, you guys keep thinking like very similarly. And Jazz actually reached out and was essentially like, hey, instead of like competing essentially, like why don't we team up and do something together? And this was in lockdown. And I remember the first episode, I was literally in my parents' closet in Melbourne recording. She was up in Brisbane with her parents at the time. And that's kind of how it came to be. I think what's surprising is just actually how difficult podcasts can be and how much work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone thinks it's so easy. Just get on the mic.
Yeah, sure.
It's many hours a week to put together a podcast, from researching to the actual recording to editing and any marketing and socials you do. I did not realise how much time it would take. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that surprised us too, George.
It has been a surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like the rapport you guys have. You're clearly like close, and it feels like I'm listening to two friends kind of chit-chat about interesting stuff this week.
And the beautiful thing is our friendship grew through the podcast. At the time, before we started, we'd probably met under 5 times. And now, like, we work together when I was at Refinery 29. And now we hang out all the time. Like, we are best friends. And it's so nice to be able to catch up on a microphone, actually. Yeah.
Is there pressure to, like, know the new thing?
Yeah, I feel like for sure. I feel like there's pressure to keep up to date with what's happening every day or every second day. And it is a bit hard. She works full-time in media as well, so I feel like she has to fully be across things. I sometimes take a step back. But yeah, it's hard to shake that.
All right, so you're really interested in fashion. and sustainable fashion as well. I was reading an article on you and your kind of hunting and op shops and things like that. So how would you kind of, what got you into sustainable fashion? Because I know it is like very much leaning towards that these days. What kind of sparked your interest in it?
Yeah, well, to take you back, I kind of have to tell you when I wasn't interested in it.
Yeah, please.
Because that switch only happened at the end of like 2019 for me. Because previously, as I mentioned before, when I was blogging, I was also posting a lot on Instagram, similar to what I'm doing nowadays. But it was fun. I was a teenager, I had a few like 1,000 followers, and I was getting gifted fast fashion items from brands I'd loved as a teen, and I was like, this is so cool, like I don't have to pay for this is the best, and it felt great for a while until it didn't. And that was because I'd never shopped like that, right? I wasn't getting new pieces in my own wardrobe that much, and I started to feel a bit icky. I couldn't really put my finger on it. And then like at that same time in school, I think I did like a couple projects on kind of like sustainable fashion or looking at the impacts of fast fashion. And then right after school, I tutored for a bit, and I remember helping a student out with their oral presentation on fast fashion. And the whole time, like I'm learning about it, but it never clicked for me. I think sometimes with social issues, they can feel so like external and like you're not a part of it. I don't know the moment where it changed, but there was a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, I'm a part of this too. Like, I'm part of the fashion system. My actions contribute to this. And from there, it actually took almost a year for me to like publicly say anything in terms of like, oh, I want to kind of curb my fast fashion habit. I want to really try to turn to slow fashion. And it took me ages just because I think there's a lot of pressure to be perfect in that space where you don't want to stuff up and you don't want people to comment on it. But since then, I have really made an effort to support brands I align with and like shop secondhand and really try to avoid fast fashion where possible.
Yeah, I don't, like, it's not a world I know about. But I had a question, like, so the opposite of fast fashion, slow fashion, is that just a supply chain that doesn't hurt the world? Is that what it's about, mainly?
Well, like, that's such a valid question because it's kind of a catch-all phrase, but it also kind of doesn't mean that much. I mean, there's no regulation or like a set definition to what fast fashion would really be. When we look at fast fashion, I guess the traditional term comes from like when high street brands, so you're looking at like Zara's and stuff, when they would copy styles and trends seen on runways, and they would recreate and reproduce them for mass audiences. And that's kind of how fast fashion happened, like in the 80s and beyond. But now it's ramping up so quickly where it's like we've got ultra fast fashion retailers, places like Shein, who make the headlines, and it's quickening so fast. So when I say slow fashion, again, it's such a loose term, but I do refer to brands that are gentle on the planet and its people. And that means potentially when we're looking at the planet, looking at the materials that are being used, when we're looking at its people, making sure that the garment workers are being cared for. For me, like payment of a living wage is so important. And also just being like conscious about production and how we use, buy, wear, discard of clothes, just being cognizant of it all.
Would you have any slow fashion brand recommendations, maybe even Melbourne or Australian ones?
I mean, even before we get to brands, there's this website I love. And it's Australian. It's called Good On You. Oh, it's so good. It is essentially like a directory of great brands. And it's like a global thing as well. But the best thing is that they also externally audit essentially brands, because it's so hard to figure out if a brand is like doing the right thing or not. You're reading their own website, you're looking through their marketing. It can be tough, but Good On You kind of looks at brands through three kind of lenses, like the planet, the people and animals, and it tells you about what they're doing actually, like kind of removing all the jargon, which really helps. And so I'm always Googling like blah, blah brand, Good On You.
Oh, fantastic.
In the store, I'm like looking as I shop.
You're getting tick.
It's bad. Give you a scowl.
Oh, that's good.
Maggie, have you seen Aerobe? The recycling
it's
startup?
a rental rental. Is that a rental thing?
It's resale.
Amazing.
Yeah. The founder is a Melbourne
great.
person. Yeah. So anyway, they help you resell clothes.
So good.
Yeah.
There are so many great tech kind of startups in the fashion space that are so exciting. Another rental program is like RNTR, like renter, but without many letters.
Sound like a tech startup?
Completely. And like Depop, I'm an avid user of, which is like an online consignment store, essentially. There's just a lot. There's one other thing called circular sourcing that recently came out about a year ago, which is an online marketplace for people to like, usually brands, but to give their discarded fabrics and other people can buy them. It's just, there's a lot out there, which is great.
Slight pivot here, but as a content creator and someone with hundreds of podcast episodes, have you gotten over hearing your own voice recorded yet? Because I can't listen to myself. Can you deal with it?
The funny thing is, I actually think that we talk about social media being very negative for mental health, and I'm not discounting that. But as someone who's taken I don't want to know how many photos I've taken of myself over a decade I've been online, it's made me quite neutral about myself. So I'm not sure if you've heard about the term like body neutrality. It's kind of for people at home who might not have heard about it. So it's similar-ish to body positivity, but it essentially makes us put less value on our physical appearance, and it's more just about like looking at like what our hands can physically do for us rather than like what they look like. So I definitely actually think that being so online has given me I guess a better sense of body neutrality as well as voice neutrality, if we want to call it that. Sure. As in, because we're talking and it is not daunting. Like, I think most people don't like the sound of their voices. And now that I'm saying this, I'm so cognizant about like the things I don't like about the sound of my voice. And I get comments on it on TikTok and stuff sometimes. So it's great when people say it. But at the end of the day, it's like it's what we say more that matters than how we sound as well. Yeah.
And I think, I just wanted to ask as well, I've noticed this kind of movement, especially because you've been online socials since you were young. I've seen this movement lately, and I thought I might ask that they're trying to move the age of like signing up to social media, like Instagram and that, to 16, and I think it's 13 now. What do you think about that?
I feel like that's probably good. This is, I'm talking...
Because you were on Twitter. Did you say it 12?
12,
One
I know.
Direction
That's
Twitter?
why I was like, I really want to ask you this. Yeah.
I think I was on Tumblr at 12.
Yeah.
Right? No, like it's painful.
Yeah.
I can't really speak for like the current like Gen Alpha and what it would be like to raise a child right now because like I have no clue, but I know for myself, like I'd probably benefit if I was online less when I was younger. Yeah. I think it's probably helpful to have more regulation around that. Yeah. Who knows what would happen? I also think though, when I'm thinking about my younger sister, she's 22 now, herself and some of her friends are quite offline by choice as well. Like, and I just really admire that. And I do think maybe tides are changing a bit. They value in real life connections. They love like being in nature. I think these very human attributes will always pull through at the end.
Yeah, that's nice. It's almost like they've just been overwhelmed with socials that they just reject it now.
Completely.
You often talk about books on Culture Club. And you had a good wrap up, sort of your favourite books of last year. Are there any you can recommend right now, like any that you're like, I love this, or just read?
Yes, there's quite a few. I love reading, and me and my co-host were in a book club together as well, like outside the pod, which is just so fun. I have recently read a book. It's by an Australian author. Her name's Jessie Tu, and it's called The Honey Eater. It's her second book, and it was just so thrilling. I personally love a like contemporary fiction read. Kind of mirrors my art choices, to be honest. But this one was in that realm. I'm really bad at giving like book synopsis, but essentially the main character, she's a book translator, and it kind of goes into her complicated relationship with her mother, and also she's in an affair of some kind as well. And then also, I don't want to spoil anything, but something big happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a thriller-ish element to
Sure,
it,
sure.
which makes it really enticing, and I really loved reading that one. Another book that I always recommend, it's one of my favourites. It's called Crying in H Mart. Have either of you heard
No,
of it?
I haven't.
No.
Okay, so it's written by Michelle Zorna. She's Japanese-American. She is the musician Japanese Breakfast. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Oh, I have heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful memoir. Again, it's about her relationship with her mum. So there's themes here, I guess.
Sure.
But it was beautiful. It's, big themes about food as well throughout the book. And so it's like really enticing to read. Like, I really loved reading that. It's been a few years since I've read that one, but I still recommend that. Yeah.
Love. I guess, what's up for the rest of the year for you, Maggie? Anything exciting coming up?
Well, in a few days, I'm actually flying to Thailand for a holiday.
Get out!
Amazing.
So that's big.
So resting is always fun.
Yep.
I think in my first year of freelance, I'm trying to not have too much pressure on how it goes. I really try. I'm someone who tries to decenter work from my life as much as possible, especially when your work is what you love and it's so much part of your identity. It can be hard to differentiate that, but
Sure.
it is something I want to work on.
Yeah, sure.
So that's why I'm like, I just want to keep writing pieces I'm proud of. That's kind of it. Like, I don't want too many big career goals. I feel very lucky that I get to have that and like have that as a focus this year. And we'll see where we go. But I'm excited to be on the beach.
Oh, and a little bit of warmth.
yes, a lot of warmth.
Amazing. It's been great. Thank you very much, Maggie, for coming
Thanks,
on.
Maggie. Great to chat to you today.
Thank you both so much for having me today. I've really
Anytime.
enjoyed this.
Anytime.